When it comes to the Euros, we are at Group A, the final group games of Group A and simultaneous play. Germany, Switzerland, Scotland, Hungary. That was Germany 1, Switzerland 1, Scotland 0, Hungary 1. And in Copa America, which we're just kicking off, as this was Group C, United States 2, Bolivia 0, Uruguay 3, and Panama 1. All right. Listen. Best moments of the day, Mossy. Victory Unlocked, brought to you by Zillow, Agents, Tours, Loans, Homes. Get home with Zillow. Let's start off with the U.S. because this was the first time we are seeing this U.S. team in this tournament. My one-word synopsis of it was sloppy. All right? Win, that's great. Get the 3 points, that's great. It probably, if you look at it, given the misses that either Balogun had and certainly the misses that Pepe had when he came on, you're probably looking at a 5-0 type of easy win for the U.S., and it should come as no surprise. It has to be said, this is one of the worst teams that I've seen in a long time that the U.S. faced in the form of Bolivia. So I got some things to say about it, but in general, let's just slow our roll a little bit relative to the competition. It's not Greg Berhalter or this team's fault. They play who's in front of them, but it's going to get much, much harder, and you can be shaded in a negative way if you just base it off of this game, given the inferior nature of the opposition.
I agree. Brazil have just 2 wins in World Cup qualifying in 6 games, and even we managed to beat Bolivia 5-1. So they are awful. So yeah, I wouldn't read too much into tonight. But there were some positives. It was great to see Tyler Adams out there for as long as he could last. And Christian Pulisic just has a look about him where I think he could have a terrific tournament.
He has matured, and he has grown up, obviously, in front of our eyes. He is no longer a little boy by any stretch of the imagination. He is no longer a teenager. But he is a man, and he has developed a grind. He has developed a relentless grind that usually is reserved for, I think, much more different types of player. But I love it. I love it because I think it is now fueling him, and you combine that with this incredible skill, and that is a hell of a combination. I'll be honest with you. I wish he could teach that grind to others. And if this generation is to live up to its full potential, there's some others out there that need to live up to that grind. Let me read down the list that I had that I jotted down at the end of this game, because I think it's a good synopsis here of the way that I thought about this game. Again, it's always with the caveat that Bolivia was crap. Okay. Set pieces. I don't know if you knew this, Mossy, but we have a new set piece coach when it comes to the U.S. men's national team. We fired the old guy, and we have a new one, and he's earned his money already.
Yeah, we apparently have him to thank for that first goal.
Well, I was being a little glib when I said, "What?" So the U.S. Soccer Federation is paying somebody to tell Christian Pulisic to take a short corner and to take the advantage of a 2v1 and then to hit it up in the upper 90.
The man's name is Johnny Vio.
Okay. Anyway, set pieces are better. I think Christian Pulisic is hitting them better, and obviously you right out of the chute, you score a goal on a set piece. That was wonderful. Ream and Richards in the back, I still think that they're suspect. I'm growing on, Scally is growing on me, but Ream and Richards, a couple of times today, they decided to either dribble out of the bat and lost it, or decided to hit bad passes out of the back, and a better team would have made us pay. I thought Reyna was, for the most part, invisible. Now, that's either on him or that's on Greg Berhalter and where he is playing him, but it doesn't matter. I didn't see Reyna, and he certainly didn't have an impact on the game. Got fouled a couple times here and there. When a team gives you the opportunities that Bolivia gave the U.S., you got to be ruthless, and you got to take that. You got to snatch that and don't let it back. And this was a bookend type of a half in that first half, goal in the first couple of minutes and the goal in the last couple of minutes, and a lot of blah in between. But they should have put it away in the first 10 minutes of this game. I thought the speed that U.S. played with was rather slow, and certainly we're going to talk about the next game. It's going to have to get faster. I thought that Weston McKennie was laboring. I thought that Weston McKennie was slow, going to grow into this tournament, but that is concerning. Pulisic, I thought was great.
Yeah, the Scally one is interesting because I'm sure Greg Berhalter wants to have solution at right back. He doesn't want to keep toggling back and forth between different players depending on the opponent. But Bolivia might have been a team where you could have put a Timmy Weah in that position. I guess he didn't want to do that. Obviously, you're not going to do that against Vinicius Jr. or Luis Diaz, but I think against Bolivia tonight, you could have done that. Instead, he put Scally out there. And, against a team where you're trying to break down bunker down defense, having a player like Scally at right back, obviously he doesn't bring you what a Serginho Dest could have.
Good, solid crowd out there in Dallas. When I say Dallas, I mean Arlington, Texas, out there. And, even in the crowd, there were, throwback types of people. Everybody's dressed up and they got flags and they got all this different stuff. I American image back in the 1900s. So if you watch the broadcast, you will have seen it. And it's pretty awesome. So there was a guy in the stands. You can see it if you're watching the pod here. Dressed up, and he got plenty of airtime, as he should be. The team on to this win. Now, anything more on this U.S. game before we move on?
Well, let me just say, I was looking up some U.S.-Bolivia history in the lead-up to this game. Obviously, you had that friendly in 2016 in which 17-year-old Christian Pulisic scored his first international goal, but also a 1995 Copa America group stage game. You lost 1-0 on a goal by Marco Echeverri. What are your recollections of that one?
Well, I thought about Marco Echeverri because, not for nothing, but when I was doing the lineup for Bolivia, and it became very, very apparent, but that there is no Marco Echeverri when it comes to this Brazilian, this Bolivian team, or Jaime Moreno. So, we did lose, but it shows how you can go up and down in a tournament and winding type of situation and still be successful.
And I might have jumped the gun there. Is your one for the road going to be reminiscing about the 1995?
I'll talk a little bit about it, but you didn't jump the gun. Absolutely not. All right, listen, let's go to the Uruguay game because I think it relates to the U.S. You have been very high on Uruguay, all right? And I think for those that hadn't seen Uruguay play, it was a dose of reality of understand why people are so bullish about this team. Now, their speed of play is a whole nother level. Their ruthlessness is a whole nother level. Their physicality is a whole nother level, especially that first half, because there was absolutely nothing that Panama could do. And Panama, it was men and boys.
They claimed a 3-1 win in Miami, which is where they hope to be again July 14th, contesting the final. I did think Panama had a good second half, which speaks to the fact that they are a better team than Bolivia. For all the talk about how the U.S. finally gets to get out of CONCACAF and play against real competition in CONMEBOL, the weakest team in this group is a CONMEBOL team. I think Panama, the second U.S. game, will be a tougher matchup than Bolivia was.
Well, there was no altitude to be found when it came to Bolivia, which is a huge advantage. But I know you want to wax poetic on this Uruguay team.
Yeah, I mean, I could watch Marcelo Bielsa jumping up and down the touchline all game. You're not a fan, huh?
Whatever.
You find his antics a little...
I don't know. I mean...
But yeah, Darwin Nunez got a nice goal today. He's in great form. I could see him having a very good tournament. Definitely a Golden Boot candidate. Araujo, what a strike for the first goal. And then Matias Vinha gets the third. I know him well. He plays for Flamengo now, played for Palmeiras before. There's a real Brasileiro flavor to this Uruguay squad with Arrascaeta and Nico de la Cruz and others. So, they were my pick to win the tournament, and I saw nothing today that would dissuade me. And, you start thinking about goal difference as far as the U.S. and Uruguay winning the group. So both at +2, the U.S. Uruguay, with one more goal scored. So, and like I said, I think Panama is better than Bolivia. So Uruguay now has the easier next game where they could build up a goal difference advantage over the U.S. and then they would be able to play for a draw in that final group game.
But do you think that the familiarity that these teams have with each other relative to CONMEBOL or CONCACAF, don't you think that changes the equation? So, for example, I'm not saying that Uruguay doesn't look to Bolivia as lesser than them and that they shouldn't beat them. But I do think that the history that they have with these teams, I think that lends itself to being a closer game than on paper.
Plus, I actually don't think it's that big a deal, the U.S. finishing first or second, because I think Colombia is every bit as good, if not better, than Brazil. So, we make a big deal about the U.S. topping the group to avoid Brazil. But, I mean, based on what you saw, those two friendlies the U.S. played, do you think it would be that big a difference in the quarterfinals facing one of those teams versus the other?
Either way, you're going to have to go through. And either way, you're going to have to play, the third game against Uruguay, but it is an elite team right now. And little teaser, tomorrow I will be coming out with my power rankings of
combined Copa and Euro.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a top 10?
Just top 10.
I can't wait to see when you put the U.S. in there. Schmeichel's head just explode in Sturridge on TV.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, anyway, that was the Copa America when it comes to this team as to what they are and ultimately how good they are. And to your point, I think it's going to get harder against Panama and then even harder against Uruguay as they go forward in this group stage. All right, let's flip it to the Euros. Like you said, Germany, Switzerland, and Scotland, Hungary. Let's start with the Germans. They get a last-minute goal, and they get their point. They finish first in the group. It was not easy by any stretch of the imagination, and I actually was very impressed with Switzerland. And this was the first time that we have seen a German team in this tournament with their kind of their back against the wall, but facing some real competition and not necessarily always having the answers.
We've talked about Wout Weghorst being this great super sub for the Netherlands. Füllkrug is sort of emerging as that for Germany as well. That's a great weapon they have. They fell behind in the first half to a goal by Ndoye and trailed for most of the game. And then in stoppage time in the second half, Füllkrug, who had come on for Musiala, gets the goal. So I don't think he's ever going to make his way into that starting lineup, but he's always going to be a player that can throw on late in games who has a knack for scoring goals. So that's interesting to keep an eye on moving forward.
Has your assessment of Germany changed at all after this 90 minutes?
Yeah, they frankly, I didn't love them against Hungary either. They've gotten progressively worse with each game. So not the juggernaut they look like after that Scotland opener.
Not only am I going to do the mixed power rankings, but I'm also going to update both the Copa America top 10 power rankings and the Euro top 10 power rankings. And I got a sneaking suspicion that that Switzerland might jump a few spaces. So look for them tomorrow. Okay, the other game, Scotland 0, Hungary 1. I mean, this was a knockdown, drag-out type of fight on the field and a desperation from both of these teams.
First off, we had a very scary moment in the second half. Barnabas Varga collides with Angus Gunn. He was down on the ground for several minutes. So that meant we had lengthy stoppage time in this game. And 90 plus 10, Kevin Sobos scores for Hungary. So they leapfrog Scotland. They finished third in the group. And now they're going to be scoreboard watching the next few days to see if they can go through as one of those best third-place finishers. And we should have mentioned the result in the other game meant that Germany, who had already gone through, they topped the group. Switzerland go through as runners-up. Scotland finished dead last. They are out.
Never underestimate the ability for the Scots to Scotland, right? I mean, we talked about it, all the memes and the kilts and the beer and the singing and the bagpipes and all this kind of stuff. And the fact that they were even in play on that in the third game is a credit to them, but they just can't find it in the big moments. And so they go home. So it's just time to, I guess, not drink, but continue to drink going forward for the Scots. You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.